Okay, welcome back. We're going to do another quick video on quadratic equations and solving them, okay? So one thing I just forgot to mention in the last one, so we just have a random quadratic equation here. So if we want to factorize it, we're going to get x minus 6 and x plus 3 is equal to 0. So don't worry, obviously I had that prepared before and it wasn't like I did it in my head that quickly. Obviously it'd take a little bit longer. But the point I was trying to make, so these here are the factors, which we know that, okay? So I'm just going to write that here, pink. Those are the factors, okay? And then when we go back to green and we say this implies that x is going to be equal to 6 or x is equal to minus 3. So that's just, you can say x plus 3 is equal to 0 or x minus 6 is equal to 0, and this will give you these two numbers here. Those are the roots of the equation. So we already know that those are the places where on our little xy axis that this thing will hit. So this one here is going to be minus 3 and this one here is going to be plus 6. But it's just the words I wanted to show you. So the factors and the roots, okay? So we're going to go ahead now, we're going to rub those out and we're going to do some examples. Just bear with me. So like I said last time, you have the general formula for a quadratic equation. So we go back to blue, is going to be ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0. So we're going to look at all three different types where there's all of them. There's just the ax and the bx, and there's the ax and the c as well, okay? So the one we're going to look at is going to be x squared minus 5x minus 6 is equal to 0. Okay, so we're going to factorize this. So what are the factors of minus 3? So we're going to pick minus 6 and 1. So if you add minus 6 and plus 1 together, you're going to get minus 5x. So those should be the right ones. So we're going to go x is minus 6 and x is plus 1 is equal to 0. And that means our two roots are going to be, so they're the factors. The roots are going to be x is equal to 6. And x is equal to minus 1. So if you want, you can write out that x plus 1 is equal to 0 and x minus 6 is equal to 0, and therefore the x is equal to 6 or x is equal to minus 1. But it's fine, you can just see that if it's x plus 1, then one of your roots is going to be x minus 1, or x is equal to minus 1. And if it's x minus 6, one of the roots is going to be x is equal to plus 6, okay? So I'm just going to draw a little sketch. So we're going to use purple beside this. And we're going to draw our little yellow one is going to be minus 1 and plus 6. So it's going to look something like that if we say that's minus 1 and this is plus 6 on our x and our y axis, okay? This is just to show the different types of quadratic equations. The next one we're going to do is, let's scroll up a little bit, use this in green, okay? Number 2 then, we're going to look at is x squared minus 5x is equal to 0, okay? So this one here, we're going to factorize it again first. It's going to be x by x minus 5 is equal to 0. So it's a little bit different. So this one again, it's the same principle that any two numbers multiplied by each other have to be equal to 0. So a lot of people just will cancel out this x here and they say that means x is equal to 5, but that's wrong, because since it's a quadratic equation, there are always going to be two answers, there's going to be two roots, okay? So there are two factors, that means there's going to be two roots. So if x multiplied by x minus 5 is equal to 0, that either x has to be equal to 0 or x is equal to 5, okay? So those are the two roots. Let me draw a little box, go back to our purple graph, a little x, y, and green is our color. So it's going to be x is equal to 0 or x is equal to 5. So it's going to hit the x-axis at x is equal to 0, which is this one here, and x is equal to 5. So this is what this quadratic equation looks like. Okay, we'll move on to our last one. We'll do this one in light blue. We're going to look at one that's going to be 4x squared minus 100 is equal to 0. Okay? So 4x squared minus 100 is equal to 0. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to just divide by 4. So it's going to be 4x squared minus 25 is equal to 0. Okay, what we're going to next, we're just going to get rid of this 4 because it doesn't actually matter for the x squared minus 25. Basically, we can get rid of the 4, so we're going to get rid of the 4. It'll just simplify our equation. So we're going to get rid of the 4 because you can divide both sides by 4 if you want. If you divide 0 by 4, you're just going to be left with 0 still. So let me just scroll down a little bit more. Now we're left with x squared minus 25 is equal to 0. Okay, so if you recognize this is going to be difference of two squares. So if we factorize this, we're going to get x plus 5 and x minus 5 is equal to 0. So again, the same rules apply where x plus 5 or x minus 5 have to be equal to 0 because the multiple or the product of them is 0. So we're going to say that x is either equal to minus 5 or x is equal to plus 5. Okay, so that means if we draw again, we're going to use this purple for our axis, ignore that little bump, that we should have a pretty much perfectly symmetrical one. So obviously on my diagram it won't be symmetrical, but the idea is that's plus 5 and that is minus 5, that it's symmetrical on the around the y-axis, so both points it's the same. Okay, so I hope that shows you the different ways you can factorize and get the roots of quadratic equations. Thank you.